Everybody obsesses over the list price when they're house hunting. I found a $350,000 house, so I need $350,000. That's not even close to the full story, and it's one of the biggest surprises we see with clients moving here from other parts of the country.
The purchase price is really just the beginning. Closing costs, property taxes, and insurance are the stuff that actually determines whether that house fits your budget long term. And today, we're breaking down exactly what those numbers look like here in Kansas City in 2026.
My name is Micah Mars, and this is my twin brother Mason. We've been helping people buy, sell, and relocate here for over 9 years now, and this is one of the conversations we have with almost every out-of-state client because a lot of these costs work differently here than wherever they're coming from.
If you're planning a move to Kansas City and want help running these numbers for your specific situation, our contact info is down in the description, or you can book a quick call with us using the link below.
Let's start with closing costs because this is actually one of the pieces of good news in this video. Missouri and Kansas both have no state-level real estate transfer tax, which is a real advantage compared to other states.
That alone keeps our closing costs lower than what buyers coming from places like Illinois or the coast are used to seeing.
That said, lower doesn't mean nothing. You're generally going to budget somewhere between 2 and 5% of the purchase price for buyer closing costs here. And that's going to cover things like your loan origination fee, appraisal, title insurance, credit report fees. On a $350,000 house, that's roughly $7,000 to $14,000 in cash that you need to have ready beyond your down payment.
But here's the part people forget. Your closing costs aren't just fees. They also include prepaid items, meaning your lender is going to want a full year of homeowners insurance paid upfront at closing, plus a couple months of cushion in escrow, and often a chunk of prepaid property taxes as well.
So when we say $7,000 to $14,000, some of that is actually the beginning of your escrow account, not just the paperwork fees.
One more thing worth knowing, depending on how the market's looking when you buy, you may not have to cover all of these costs yourself. If conditions favor buyers a little bit more, it's possible to negotiate the seller to pay some or all of your closing costs as part of the deal.
It's always worth asking about, especially if you're working with tighter cash on hand.
Now let's get into the one that really surprises people moving here, and that's property taxes. Because this is where the Missouri side and the Kansas side actually look fairly different.
On the Missouri side, in counties like Jackson, Clay, and Platte, effective property tax rates land somewhere around 1 to 1.3% of the home's value. So on a $350,000 home in Jackson County, you're probably looking at somewhere in the $3,500 to $4,500 range annually.
Platte County has actually gone even further and temporarily slashed its own county levy down to almost nothing for 2025 and 2026. So if you're buying in Platte County specifically, your county level portion of that bill is unusually low right now.
On the Kansas side, in Johnson County and Wyandotte County, the story shifts a little bit. Kansas actually assesses homes at a lower percentage of market value than Missouri does, but the tax rate themselves tend to run higher, and because home values in Johnson County are some of the highest in the state, the actual dollar amount homeowners pay tends to be noticeably more.
Johnson County has one of the highest median property tax bills in the entire state of Kansas, often north of $4,000 a year. Wyandotte County, where Kansas City, Kansas sits, tends to be more moderate with the median bills closer to $2,900, mostly because the home values there are a little bit lower.
So the short version, if minimizing your annual property tax bill is a top priority, the Missouri side, especially Clay or Platte County, tends to have an edge right now. If you're set on being in Johnson County for schools or amenities, just know you're likely trading a lower home price to tax ratio for some of those things.
One quick side note though, for anyone moving here who's 62 or older, both Clay and Jackson counties have adopted a state program that lets seniors freeze their property tax bill at a base amount once you hit that age. So if that applies to you, it's worth asking us about when you're looking at specific neighborhoods.
All right, let's talk about insurance because this is honestly the cost category that surprises people who are moving here the most. Kansas City sits in a part of the country that gets a lot of severe weather. We're talking tornadoes, hail, high wind, pretty regularly throughout the year. Because of that, homeowners insurance here runs meaningfully higher than the national average. Depending on which insurer you choose and what coverage level you're looking at, a policy with around $300,000 in dwelling coverage typically runs between $2,700 and $4,500 a year here in the metro.
That's a wide range, and it really does come down to your specific home, your roof, your claim history, and which company you go with, which is why we always tell clients to get quotes from at least 3 providers before locking anything in.
There's also a real difference between the two sides of the state line here. Kansas as a whole tends to run higher on homeowners insurance than Missouri does, largely because of hail exposure. So if you're comparing a similar home in Overland Park versus one in Lee Summit, don't be shocked if the Kansas side quote comes back just a little higher.
One thing we always mention to out-of-state buyers is standard homeowners insurance doesn't cover flood damage. So if you're in a home that is near a creek or a low-lying area, sometimes a separate flood policy will be required by the lender. They typically aren't terribly expensive, but it can definitely change your monthly costs.
So let's actually put all this together because the individual numbers matter less than what they add up to. If you're buying a $350,000 home somewhere in the metro, you've got down payment plus roughly $7,000 to $14,000 in closing costs. Then month to month, beyond your typical mortgage principal and interest, you're layering in maybe another $300 to $400 a month for property taxes, depending on which county you land in, and another $225 to $375 a month for insurance.
That's an extra $500 to $750 a month on top of your loan payment. And that's the number that actually determines whether a house fits your budget, not just the purchase price you see on Zillow.
This is exactly why we tell every client, especially people relocating from out of state, to get a full loan estimate that actually includes all of these numbers, not just a rough principal and interest estimate. A lender who knows the local market can pull the actual tax history and run real insurance estimates for a specific address, and that can change your monthly number by a couple $100 depending on which county and which neighborhood you're comparing.
Here's the honest takeaway. Kansas City is still genuinely affordable compared to a lot of the other major metros in the country, even once you stack all these costs together.
But the county and even specific neighborhood you choose can really shift your total monthly costs by a meaningful amount. So it's definitely worth running these numbers before you fall in love with a specific house or area.
So we're curious, does knowing any of these numbers change how you'd approach house hunting here? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're planning a move to Kansas City and want us to run the real numbers for a specific area or home you're considering, our contact info is in the description. Or you can click the link to book a quick call with us.
Make sure you're subscribed too, because we've got a lot more videos coming every week covering exactly what it's like to live and buy here.